captured me with your opening statement when you said, "My mother always said problem gamblers are people first, and I am a judge who does not judge." Thank you, Judge Moss, to you and your team for everything you've done in the past 2 years for me and the 8 other participants, providing us with treatment, accountability, stability, and most of all, recovery. Thank you so much, Judge Moss. We love you, we're going to miss you, and we wish you the best.
The rumor is that you're retiring. Sad to see you go, but you've earned it. And I want to thank you for accepting me into the program, and I'll always be grateful for the opportunity. And I wish you well. I wish you best retirement ever. And thank you, Judge Moss. It's been an honor. You're on.
Hi, I just wanted to give a big thank you to you, Judge Moss, and this great program that you started. I honestly don't know where I would be without this program and you. I know I was just, when I came in, this kind of out of control kid, and now actually today I sold the first pool I designed, so it's been a big difference in this program, and with your help and guidance, so I really appreciate you, and I hope you enjoy your retirement. Thank you.
Hi, Judge Moss. I appreciate everything that you're doing, especially for state and actually the nation. Hopefully more states bring in the program also. You and your mother are definitely pioneers of this program. Really honored to be accepted and be going through this. It's definitely been a big help for me, and especially with the veterans. When we do meet, they can't wait to hear from you and how everything's going, how the program is. And big plus definitely with the veteran community. Appreciate everything that you do. Thank you, Judge Moss, and good luck being retired.
So, Judge Moss, this is Calvin Bryant, and I'd like to thank one of your favorite participants. I am thankful and grateful to be a part of this program. The program has added structure in my life that was well needed to make me become a better person. Now, for you, Judge, the real journey in life begins at retirement. May you have a wonderful retirement, Judge.
Hi, Judge Moss. I just want to wish you a congratulations on your retirement. I know this is our last meeting together and only one of 3, but I am super grateful to have gotten to know you thus far. I appreciate your support and the support that you show to everyone in this program. Wish you nothing but the best in your future retirement, and thank you again for everything.
Alex here with retired District Court Judge Cheryl Moss with a perspectives video on the Gamblers Treatment Diversion Court. Let's start off with who you are and your lengthy background serving the people of the state of Nevada, both prior to and after taking the bench.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you here, Alex. And for those that don't know me, which is be difficult in Nevada, my name is Judge Cheryl Moss. I served in Family Court, Department I, from 2001 to my retirement in 2021. So 20 years on the family court bench, and in the last 2 years with the GTDC court, Gambling Treatment Diversion Court. I was the first judge to create it, and I ran it for 2 years. Yeah, we'll skip a lot of that lengthy stuff out of the Nevada attorneys, I'm sure, and especially the Southern Nevada attorneys that have seen me a lot in the courtroom. I think they know who I am.
So for those last 2 years, I'm curious, were you serving the family court bench and JTDC at the same time, or just JTDC only?
The former, Alex. I served as a full-time family court judge. I heard my cases full-time, but I reserved Friday mornings for the GTDC court when we went live on November 30th, 2018. And gambling treatment field has kind of been my passion. Even it's my first year as a family court judge. Maybe a few things that you don't know about me. I was the first judge in family court to institute, I don't want to say problem gambling. It's really now more disorder gambling, because it is an addiction. And my role goal is to educate, and problem might be a little more stigmatizing. If I refer to it, then it's what it's normally referred to as. But I was the first judge to institute problem gambling assessments in domestic relations cases. So there is some applicability there to the family law attorneys listening on this. And they known it, and sort of the idea picked up with other judges, and they would just come to my courtroom and say, can I get a copy of your referral order? Because I've got one spouse accusing another spouse of having a gambling issue. I don't want to say addiction. It's still stigmatizing, but having a gambling issue, and it may not necessarily be an addiction, more of a disorder, and we would find out if it was genuinely involved property and debt issues, but more importantly, the children issues. So if you want to delve a little bit into that, if you have a disorder and you are diagnosed, whether on the spectrum level, just severe or problematic, then you're going to be doing things like leaving your children in the car, forgetting about them, losing them in the casino, security's looking for the parent, and they're so wrapped up in their gambling, or leaving them in a 7-Eleven parking lot, in the car. And believe me, yes, that does happen. And I've had cases, where they're not attending to their children, or leaving their children home alone while they got gambled for hours in a casino. And it does impact on the ability to care for their children and responsibility for them and supervision.
Wow, I actually saved this question for the end, but I'm going to go ahead and jump to it now. I read one of your articles, Shuffling the Deck, and I did find it interesting that there were portions of your article recognizing an intersection between gambling and divorce, specifically marital waste, community waste. And it looks like, I don't want to assume, but it looks like that is maybe what sparked the idea of the JTDC, which, as far as I know, it's a criminal diversion specialty court. If I'm wrong, correct me on that.
Well, I think it's just my background. Some may not know, my late mother, Dr. Raina Nora, was the chief of psychiatry at the VA Medical Center here in Las Vegas. She transferred over from the VA hospital in New Jersey. And so that's how I've been exposed to the gambling treatment field ever since I was 10 years old, 12 years old. And through my mother's pioneering work in raising awareness that, hey, gambling disorder, gambling addiction, there's going to be a need for people to get treatment. And in terms of my role as a family court judge, I thought about bringing over that concept to help screen for those types of cases and use that knowledge. So I have more than 20 plus years, or more than, I'm not going to give my age, Alex, but more than that. Ever since I was 10 years old, I've always been exposed to the kind of the movers and the shakers, my mom and who she introduced me to. But it goes back about 20 years when I first started attending conferences and seminars and tagging along with my mom. And next thing you know, I recently just won a national award for advocacy from the National Council on Problem Gambling. And I'm so proud to say that award represents Nevada, because Nevada having the first gambling treatment diversion court. And we, the participants are adults. So we are the first serving adults. But there was an original one in Amherst, New York, by the late Judge Mark Farrell, who had started a gambling court in 2010, or maybe 2001, till his retirement. And then sadly, he passed away, and the court is now inactive in New York. So I'm proud to have Nevada or the only current active gambling court in the US and probably the world. It's now being run by my successor, Chief Judge Linda Bell, and it was her pioneering vision that said to, one day she said to me, Judge Moss, do you want to start the court? And I said, absolutely, yes. I've been waiting nearly 10 years since the law was passed. It was amended to add diversion for those with a gambling disorder. And so that's how it came to be.
It really does touch a lot of lives, especially in Vegas. I have 2 family members who are definitely impacted by the issue. Here we go. I think we should start off with some of the basics before getting into the GT DC itself. Could you tell us what a diversion is as well as a bit about our specialty courts generally, because some of our viewers might not know even those basic terms.
Yes, when we were first created, and you hit the nail on the head, Alex, it is a kind of a specialty court. We are maybe not officially a specialty court. Maybe we are now, because we do receive grant funding from the state of Nevada, the Division of Health and Human Services. And at that time, we were kind of a baby court, trying to be a specialty court. And I think it does fit in that category because we serve a special, unique function where participants can elect to go into the court. And so, just by way of background and history, the law was amended to add for diversion for anyone who committed a crime and the crime was committed in furtherance of a gambling addiction. And it originates in criminal court. So I kind of like to refer to it as the aftermath court. That is a gambler hitting rock bottom, the most severe of consequences of their gambling. And they find themselves in criminal court, faced before a criminal judge. And when we have the new law passed, they can now elect to do that. But a judge also has discretion and possibly, well, I think a judge has a duty to point out to that defendant and his attorney, look, we have diversion. And I think if you fit in this category and are eligible under the statute, you can elect to go to a gambling treatment diversion court. If I recall, the statute says the judge shall hold an eligibility hearing. So I think it is a mandatory duty that if it looks like a gambling addiction case, the judge has a mandatory duty to raise the issue of diversion. But the defense attorney, a good defense attorney, will also say, hey, we have that option. We would like to elect or choose the diversion if we feel we meet the eligible requirements under the statute. So I don't know if you want me to go into the requirements. Just in a nutshell, from a layperson's viewpoint, you land yourself in family court. Maybe the best way is to give by example. And let's say you got arrested for either theft, fraud, embezzlement, and it was charged as a felony. So these are felony cases. You appear before the judge and you've never had a criminal history before. Okay, so first time offender, and it was only because of the gambling. So the judge has to hold the eligibility hearing. The DA or the prosecutor, the defense attorney, they can present, both sides of the argument and evidence to say whether or not this person is eligible to have diversion. So you would get an assessment done by a professional. Typically, we would prefer a certified problem gambling counselor who's qualified to do these assessments and screening to say, hey, he's not playing the get out of jail free card, or, she's faking it. You want to make sure they genuinely have a gambling disorder that meets the criteria under the DSM-5 Diagnostic Statistics Manual, which classifies it as a disorder. So that's why I say gambling disorder. That person, the expert witness, can testify, submit a report in the court. The prosecutor may want full financial actions that led to the arrest. And the second part of the equation here is that the expert witness would say, yes, judge, they do have a diagnosable gambling addiction, and that the second requirement is treatment through the diversion program would benefit this person. So that is the second half. You have to meet that they do have a gambling addiction, and if they do get treatment, they are a good candidate for a healthy recovery and becoming a good citizen, and not go back to a life of crime. Because if they don't get help, Alex, they're going to keep committing crimes. They're not going to get treatment, and without that treatment, then they have to engage in that risk reward behavior and origins. It could be because to stop the pain, the pain of trauma in the past could be a childhood trauma, adverse childhood experience. We call them an ACE, or anxiety disorder, or just coping with life in general. And they just choose to gamble. Some choose to smoke, some choose to drink. but this one is unique in with respect to gambling. Not everybody becomes like an addicted gambler, but there is just a few percentage of people, and those are the ones we focus on, where you can get them help and recovery. And I'm not guaranteeing it's always going to be a successful thing, but I'd like to think that when we had my 9, by the time I retired, I had 9 participants in 2 years. I think we're up to 11 now, from what I hear with Judge Bell. Some of them have very high restitution, some no restitution, and some of them are a mess when they come into first time in the courtroom. You know, some have already actually done 1 or 2 years of treatment and recovery. And I said, well, it's the program, you have to go through it again. But if you're going to be, you know, if you're already in a good place, all you need to do is just, you know, keep complying, and then you will get to the, you know, the finish line. The finish line is graduation. Prove to the judge, you know, that you're in healthy recovery, and that you are genuinely, you know, not going to go back to a life of crime, and make that restitution if you do have one. And so that's kind of how you get into gambling treatment diversion court. So I said criminal court is the aftermath court. By no means, it's not a derogatory statement to the criminal judges. They are very supportive of my judicial colleagues. They're very supportive of the program. I was happy to go into, you know, the criminal judges division meeting and tell them all about it. And they say, we have this statute and we have a duty as judges to enforce the law and make that available if they're eligible. And when I say aftermath, it's aftermath for the gambler. There's like a V model, like a V. When you hit rock bottom, that's usually where criminal court happens. Usually at the bottom or just up, you know, it's going to go downhill, but it can go uphill to healthy recovery. But they're sort of at the bottom or one notch up in the aftermath phase. And so that's where we're at. And GTDC court, I like to think, is the shining light of hope court. And we can give you that shining light of hope. We do our best. We are a supportive court of victims' rights here. And, you know, we have Marcy's law. They have every right to come to a public hearing and participate, and they're allowed to make statements to the judge. But if they're allowed to make statements, then the participant also has a right to make statements about how they're doing with their treatment, how they like being in the program. And then it's up to the judge to make specific findings to support that they've met the requirements and that they are entitled to graduation. The program is 18 to 36 months. We can't hold them more than 36 months, so they might not pay off all the restitution, but some solutions offered are civil confession judgments. It's not my expertise to see if there's any probation attached, but my understanding of the statute, there is no probation attached. So they're on their own once they graduate, and the ultimate outcome is dismissal of the case. You get a clean slate, which means if you get a clean slate, you're not going to have a felony on your record. You will be able to pay restitution, become a productive member of society, get a job, you know. But if you worked in a casino and got caught, likely you wouldn't want to work in the casino industry. Obviously, if you're trying to stay abstinent and avoid gambling altogether and be able to function daily, and take another job, and you're going to need that. It's important to pay back taxes. The IRS is going to be involved. We do a lot of that, you know, financial monitoring as well, but I don't want to go into details. But I hope I gave kind of a good, you know, layperson overview how they land in court and how they make it into the GTDC program, the courtroom.
Yeah, you're pretty thorough. One of the questions was eligibility, and you definitely went over that. I noticed when I went over the documentation that the process itself seems to be also equally thorough. Apparently, there's like a 4-phase process. How does the court go about monitoring progress when they're actually in the program, facilitating the success of the defendant, as well as protecting the public from any other crimes that may be committed in furtherance of the gambling issue, while, you know, they're in the actual program itself?
Yeah, in the beginning, there's a lot of paperwork. There's the $1,500 administrative cost fee, and we'll talk about that too, and the restitution. Remind me, because I have thoughts on that. But there's a lot of paperwork. You have to sign it. We developed a gambler's contract, which means you're an open book. When you come into the courtroom, you agree to do this program, you elect to do this program, you're an open book with finances. Your checking account, your bank statement, if you have one, credit report, your W-2G winnings. We want to know every aspect of how you manage financially, because usually when you're gambling, you cannot manage financially because all you want to do the money, they used to say, you know, how drug addicts, the money is the needle, the tool to get that high of gambling, to take away the pain. But which leads to another question. And I've been asked when I've been making these presentations elsewhere, can you integrate? Why don't you just put them in drug and alcohol court? I'm like, because it's different. We're talking about financial. We don't look at gambling addiction. You can't test for it. You can to an extent, but you can't smell it, you know, and you can't smell alcohol. You can smell alcohol, but you can't smell gambling addiction. You have to do a thorough process. And I'm not going to get into that because that is the certified problem gambling counselor's realm on what tried and true assessments that they do, that they're trained to do. So we leave that to them. But you're subject to assessments, but it's financial. That's why we are unique, you know, like a unique type of court. We can't just say start it up or send them to drug and alcohol court. There's different ways to handle it's different ways to handle that and how you approach it with a gambling GTDC participant. And there's what we call comorbidity. So we have the usual, we weekly random drug testing in the beginning, even though we know maybe you don't really have an alcohol or drug problem, you just have this gambling problem, but we taper that off. But you go through the program. You got to go to weekly random drug testing. You got to go once a week therapy to start with your counselor. We can at any time, you know, ask you to provide your financial documents, financial disclosure forms, which that was developed from family court,
Yeah.
the general FDF.
Yes.
We used that because it was, you know, it was thorough.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very thorough document and it was served very usefully. So they fill out an FDF because I can read those in my sleep, having looked at thousands of them as a family court judge. And there's a special role called a gambling court coordinator that was by the staff that came from the specialty courts. They assigned me a gambling court coordinator. Her name is Stephanie Hui, Miss Stephanie Hui, and she's a mental health professional. She's got those credentials, and I think she's getting her doctorate. So wishing her luck on her PhD. And she is the point person, the anchor woman. She's the one that talks almost daily to the participants, keeps track of them. And she gathers all the information for our staffing sessions for the judge. And she writes a report, which is entered into an actual software system, the system where they get an account and they can upload their progress reports. So we meet every 2 weeks, 1 hour before court starts. We usually have our staffing session and we put those documents together. Final mention is location monitoring. And again, thank you to my family court experience, we used a parent app, typically a parent app called Life 360, because we didn't have any funding. We started the court with zero funding and it was a free app. So parents use it to put it on their kid's cell phone. They know when they get home from school, when they arrive at school. And it was a perfect app to use, but not in a perfect world. You can leave your home on burner phone, go phone, but none of my participants did that. They were, I had to give them that certain trust with that, but they didn't have a problem leaving it on 24/7, and it was free up to 30 days. If I said, hey, you need more location monitoring because I'm questioning where you're going, like what are you doing at the Palms poolside at your friend's birthday party? You know, you have to get permission. They need to get approval to attend a social event, as long as we know they're not on the gambling floor and you are actually poolside. So yeah, I don't stop them from, if they want to go to the rodeo downtown, you know, El Dorado days, or a concert. Yeah, there's no gaming there, but sometimes you have to go through a casino to get to that, or we'll find other ways to enter that. Or if you have a job, you know, like a tour guide host at the convention center, had that with one of the participants, and we would pre-approve their location as long as it's not on a gaming floor. It's telling, Alex, when you're like at the gas station, even across the street from a casino or anywhere, any gas station, there's gaming machines there.
Yep.
How long would it take you to pump gas? You know, 5 minutes? if you're here for 3 hours, we're going to have a talk. And the next time you see me in court, because what are you doing in a gas station, a 7-Eleven gas station? There's gaming there. Right? You could be grocery shopping. People like not hang out in a grocery store for 3 hours, 6 hours. You know, those gray areas, an hour. I don't know. Now that's a questionable thing. So I would say make a list ahead of time, get in, get out. I don't want you hanging around, and you have that access. And how do you access it? Well, you feed cash, and it's scary now. I mean, scary in a sense, like cashless gaming, you know, and the online gaming. There's other things. We have tools. We can press a button, say you can only buy McDonald's, you can buy Starbucks, you can pay your bill, but you cannot enroll in the casino online gaming. You know, we can block it. That's our app that blocks all gaming apps. You know, and I don't know if they say it slows down your phone, but I think it's a very effective tool. It's a form of self-exclusion, or maybe involuntary. The judge says, put that Gamban app on your phone. The third thing is I forgot what it was what we used. We didn't impose the Gamban or the TrueLink. It was just there if we needed to do it, and we were still looking at the efficacy of the apps at the time, but we didn't feel we needed that because our participants were mainly compliant. I think those are the ones I recall. Self-exclusion forms. It's not involuntary in Nevada. It's voluntary. So you have to go to every casino and individually fill out forms. 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, or lifetime. And since the duration of their program is 3 years, I think they could go for the 3 years of self-exclusion. And that means they won't get marketing materials. They won't get player cards, and you're not allowed on the premises. And if you do, you'll be escorted out because you voluntarily self-excluded. It's voluntary to an extent, but the judge can say you can do it. You have to sign. There's another company called Everi, Everi. They could run all the ATM machines in the strip. They're not covering all of Las Vegas like the 7-Elevens, but you can exclude. You can sign a form with Everi. I think we made a few of them do that, where you're like your credit card, your debit card will not work. TrueLink will come in if you really are not trustworthy with what you spend, because they have jobs, they've got credit cards, and they've got debit cards. And if you cannot manage, we will go in there and hit the yes and no button, the toggle, the on and off button, what you can or cannot spend on. So the younger participants, adulting is hard. I told one of them, a young gentleman, adulting is hard, and he's come a long way, and he really transformed. So, which leads me to the transformation, the moment of clarity, because they can come in here, they can try and play this. Yeah, I'm here if I want to go through the program, and when I get on, I'm off the hook, right? No, I'm on to them for that. I want to make sure you really want to participate. You can be in denial. You can be like, I don't like, I'm here because I have to do it. And I really would prefer that over jail time, prison time. Because if you're already in the program and you get kicked out of the program, you're going to go back and do your prison time.
So I first learned about the self-exclusion feature when because I used to work at Everi. I was a software engineer. That was my previous job. And I was very fascinated.
Then you know about Everi.
I was working on the anti-money laundering software specifically, but I did learn about the self-exclusion tool for the first time ever. And I thought to myself how helpful that would have been even 10, 15 years prior, because this is an issue that did affect my family and my upbringing a little bit. Let's see here. I'm going to run a clip to show the viewers a presentation given by a GTDC participant when you were on the bench.
We're on the record, and Alex McCall is going to give us his budget presentation. This is your show, so, but you are limited to 10 minutes maximum. And I've been looking forward since the last court hearing. Very good. So take it away, Alex.
All right. So this is Alex McCall's budget, written by Alex McCall, narrated by Alex McCall.
Very good.
Let's see how this. All right. So my average income, I usually make about my past couple paychecks were smaller, so that sucked.
Okay.
But it's coming back, and it's a decently, and And my dad's nice enough to give me from time to time just to help out. Usually fill up gas, oil changes, stuff like that. Court-related expenses, of course. My current restitution I'm paying is...
That's a big gavel. I like
was
it.
actually looking to buy it. It was like $10 on Amazon.
I like it.
In conclusion, I really need a new job. And a second job.
I like it.
Third job might not hurt, actually.
Right?
And
That's all, folks. Way to go, Alex. I enjoyed it. I loved it. Thank you. Leave it up there. I like that. Thank you so much.
Could you tell us more about the purpose of a presentation like that, when it occurs, and its significance?
It was a homework project, and it was just something I developed on my own. Like, how am I gonna get through to this young kid? I think I'm ambivalent. I'm not sure whether he's really into the program or not. So I assigned him that homework project, and it had relevance because he was gonna talk about the budget, and he made some fantastic PowerPoints. He actually had a stuttering problem, and he did not once stutter during his presentation, and he had to present in a courtroom full of people, and like I said on the video, he knocked it out of the park, and I was so proud of him. It was a defining moment, and I think that might have been his. In the treatment world, we say their moment of clarity. They have a moment of clarity. Realize, yeah, this is a good thing. Recovery is a good thing, and I'm embracing it now, because we never force anything on them. They have to find it themselves, and so that was, I think, a defining moment for him. And he actually almost had a tear in his eye. I could tell on my farewell session, when he knew that the person, the lady that he came in at the same time, his case and her case, and she was going to graduate before him, and I had to think on the spot in the middle of my court session, what am I going to say to this poor kid? He feels bad, like, yeah, I'm doing great too. And she complied with everything. And I said, look, Alex, believe it or not, his name was Alex too, so we can call him by their first name. I said, look, Alex, you're my role model now. You have just been promoted, upgraded. You are like my shining star. So when these future participants come in while you're finishing out your program, you're going to show them the way, Alex, because I trust you into showing them how do you work the program? How does GTDC work? And the participants talk amongst themselves. They become friends. Sometimes they go to support meetings together, like GA meetings, group therapy meetings, or just support meetings. There's difference between GA, Gamblers Anonymous, and treatment. They're separate. One is treatment, the other one is support group, and sponsors, getting a sponsor and all that. And so I saw a little smile on his face, and it gave him the courage and the motivation to continue on with his journey to get into the end of his graduation. And I will say, any one of my first 9 participants, upon their graduation, I will be there in attendance in the courtroom with Judge presiding. And so it's a very humanistic court. We have a very human aspect. And the first thing, I tell you, the first 2 participants, the lady, it was a lady and a guy, and the lady, scared as heck. She had actually come out of prison while she was fighting for diversion. She had a very good attorney. They appealed it, and she won the appeal. And she was eligible for diversion. So our first 2 referrals. And she was scared. She didn't know what to think, very nervous. First time she's like, not been good experiences appearing before criminal court judges and all that. I was like, this is different here. We welcome you. I'm not going to babysit you though. You're a grown adult. You have to put whatever work you put into it. And one thing I want you to remember, my mom always said, treat people as people. You will not be called defendant in this courtroom. I can address you by your first name, but you're a person in this courtroom. And remember that. You are a good person innately, and the judge doesn't judge. And she stuck with her, this judge doesn't judge, and you are a good person. I mean, you've probably encountered those, see those divorce cases, and people at their worst, their ugliest, but there's good in everyone, every human being, and you treat them like a human being, not like, oh, look, ugly divorce case, they're fighting. It's like, oh, well, terrible parents and all that. It's just a matter of that and how you treat your, if you were an attorney, how you treat your clients. If you were a judge, how do you treat your litigants and the attorneys that appear in your courtroom? You treat them with respect. Everybody deserves respect, and it's the only way I can see of being how to be, you know, what the judge's role is to dispense justice and fairness. It's not easy. You might not be able to get to good decisions. You have to be practical, sometimes street smart, and have kind of an instinct or a knack for where people are coming from, you know, credibility and all that. But they're all good people. And I had I'll tell you a quick story. I had one of my participants test positive for opiates. That's a big no-no. That's like a violation.
Mhm.
And he, before he got to court, he immediately enrolled in rehab and all that and treatment for that to address that comorbidity problem. And he had a good job. He was doing really well. And I don't know, it's because of the job, the stresses of the job, or what caused him to seek out opiates. To maybe something happened. Maybe he had a fight with his girlfriend. And you know all about how people can feel, the trauma they feel, the negative experiences. And he was like head down. And I looked him in the eye and said, look, and his name was Calvin. I said, hey, Calvin, you're a good person. You're a good person that made a bad choice. I want you to make good choices from now on. And so it's up to the judge whether they want to give a second chance or not. And it was a first offense. It was a big one. And I'm hearing from Stephanie, he's doing fabulous. He's drug-free. He's making good money with that job. He doesn't have restitution, and he continues on with his recovery and his treatment. And so he is a good candidate to graduate. And I'd like to say they earned their graduation if they really made a change in their lives. And so my experience in family court, you know, kind of, and being there for so long, as the older you grow, Alex, the wiser you get. You see you've been there, done that, been around the block, and you see the ways of the world. And young attorneys coming up, I mean, my advice would be learn from the older attorneys, you know, the older, longer, not older, I want to call them old, but the longer practicing attorneys, the ones that have, you know, really good reputations. And to get, you know, advice from those attorneys. And your reputation is what you make of yourself as an attorney, and how you want to engage with other attorneys and interact. And but you get wiser. And not to detract or anything, but that wise wisdom
Yeah.
that I learned that word from my very first boss I worked for when I was in college at a law firm. His name was Jake Stein, the late Jake Stein. He was legendary in Washington, D.C. Made such an impression. First thing he said, read this book by Balthasar Gracian, The Art of Worldly Wisdom. It's all about wisdom. And boy, first book I bought and kept with me. And I even had him sign it next time I visited him, you know, after I became a judge.
Mhm.
And it stuck with me, you know, about what it means to be wise. And if you are wise and can impart some of that wisdom and knowledge to younger generations or to your participants, it may be that guiding light that may help them find healthy and true recovery.
So I did want to mention that at the start of the video, we did run the farewell clip that you mentioned, including the portion where one of the participants calls you, quote, the judge who does not judge, unquote. It's interesting that that's the mindset and approach that you took when presiding over these cases. Pretty counterintuitive, I think, but it does seem to me that would be the way to do it. I was also curious to know, I know Clark County contains a gamblers treatment diversion court in Las Vegas. I'm curious if you have been working to expand it to the other judicial districts in the state, particularly Reno.
And I know you have a background in Reno. I think you worked there at one point.
Yeah, I did.
Yes, I did. And I did approach my judicial colleagues. I think it was 2019, after I had already created the gambling court and it was running it full active operation. And it wasn't an opportune time. And I, you know, respect the Reno judges for that. They've got their drug courts they got to run and all that. But I think in due course, in due time, I have a lot of hope. I'll have a lot of hope. Hope can keep us moving along. That and there's really good people, certified problem gambling counselors up in Reno, Denise Quirk at the Reno Problem Gambling Center. So if any Reno attorneys get a gambling case, criminal or otherwise, or divorce, the RPGC is just the place to go, I would think, because she worked with my mother, and I've known her for a long time. I'm not trying to plug in or anything, but I'm like, there's just really, Reno has a wonderful expert up there that has worked with the courts. And so you've got a base, a foundation and a knowledge and a base over there already. If you have somebody there, the contact there, so that was my point. You have contacts there, there's other, gambling treatment people there. And you also have specialty courts up there. And it's just a matter of getting the roadmap, and I'm available if they want to call me. How do we do a roadmap? And how did you do it without zero funding? And how did you run your courts? I mean, that's my role now, as a retired judge, is to impart that education and knowledge. And I think that's my way of giving back to the community, not for any selfish purposes. Okay. It's just to it's my way of community service, and just something I know. If there's something I know about, and I'm happy and eager to help out. I think it's a good thing. I appreciate all the praise and all that, and getting the award. But my Cheryl O'Hare from the Nevada Council, she's like, look, Cheryl, you get a national award. That award doesn't mean you stop.
Mm-hmm.
You stop doing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And so the award is a representation of what you've accomplished over the years and continue to do. And so it's not easy, Alex. You get some tough questions. I know that. But you just keep going. You do what you do. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that question. I hope Reno will do that. Bottom line, we stand available. I know the people, and we can have that foundation in the base. I will pay my plane ticket to travel up and land at the Reno International Airport. Mm-hmm. And I know my way. I've been there for many judges conferences. And so that's how I've met my Reno colleagues and people, the judges also in Sparks and Gardnerville. I'll go there on my own dime and provide a training or just educate. My job is to educate. And so I'm happy to do that for my judicial brethren and sisters.
A lot of them do watch these videos, so I wouldn't be surprised if you get some feedback from them. And this is just, a part of you continuing to educate. On another note, you have been featured in several articles on the expansion of the JTDC to other states, and it looks like there is some significant progress going on there. Could you let us know a little bit more about that?
Thank you for asking me that, Alex, because to put it in context, Nevada, there's over 150 casinos. Maybe that number might be a little off, but last I checked, there's over 150 casinos, maybe more than that, but it's a good number compared to others. We're the gaming capital of the world. I think we still hold that title.
Yeah. Now
you've got New Jersey and Pennsylvania getting in, no pun intended, getting in on the action. Mm-hmm. And they are generating loads of revenue. So nothing wrong with gaming. We're not, I say myself, I'm not anti-gaming. I talk to a lot of people in the gaming industry, executives and whatnot, and we're not anti-gaming. They call it responsible gaming. Maybe they call it responsible gambling, but whatever the terminology, gambling is not going to go away. And it is an entertainment industry. What drives Nevada's survival? Las Vegas and Reno, gaming, tourism, and gaming, and it's a very lucrative, business. And I'm not against that, but there are for some a small population, and there are gamblers who can become addicted, become severe problem gamblers. And like I said, you've had experience with maybe two people, whether in your family or friend unit system. It does happen, and that's what the court is for. So expansion of gaming. With expansion of gaming, you're going to have a predictably increased likelihood of more disordered gamblers. That number is going to go up. More gaming, more access, new forms of gaming, gambling on esports, loot boxes, and gaming addictions. With the expansion of gaming, there's going to be more disordered gamblers. I think that's something I envision, and we need to close the gap. Now, I'll say that this is Nevada, so I know there's probably people, attorneys or judges who know gaming people. They're doing their part. We have our $2 slot machine tax, and we're getting a $1 million budget. Compared to states like Massachusetts, they have 17 million that is directed from the government. 17 million goes to prevention, awareness, treatment, and funding of these types of programs. But with more expansion of gaming, why did I look to New Jersey? Well, I'm a Jersey girl. I'm from New Jersey. I spent my childhood, elementary, middle school, junior high school, and high school there until I moved away to DC to go to college and law school. And New Jersey is a population of 8 million, approaching 9 million. What are we in Las Vegas? 2.6, 2.7, maybe 3 million. Maybe by 2023, maybe I saw an RJ article on that. And comparison of numbers. So 3 million, 9 million, that's triple the number. How many cases did I have in gambling court? 9, 10, 10 potentially. And so the numbers will be triple, is my guess. Even in New Jersey, maybe. If they pass, well, hopefully, I'd like to say when, but if they pass this legislative GTDC bill modeled after the Nevada statute, but I think it's they have differences, like they're going to have probation departments involved. We don't involve probation in Nevada, and that they have their counsel actually listed in the statute, the language, the draft bill, and it's already been introduced in the Assembly, New Jersey Legislature, Assemblyman Caputo, and a identical bill in the Senate, Senator Nick Scutari. And they're on summer recess now as we're recording this video. But maybe after the November elections, that bill will get to a committee hearing, and hopefully it'll be a good thing. And who's to say, that if it becomes law, if the New Jersey judges want to call me up, I'm available. If they want, they can create their own program. But I'd like to think I'm a very good resource and, educator. So we're happy to help. And the New Jersey Gambling Court Initiative, they do have a website, www.njgamblingcourtinitiative.com. And a person by the name of George Mildanitz, he's running that, and I sort of kind of a collaborator and supporter, and add more educational pieces to the website. But he's really the one that's trying to help it get through the legislature, and so wish him luck on that. But New Jersey will need it, and if the bill, if it gets passed, they'll have North, Central, and South. And there'll be a lot of big education learning curve. Yes, with criminal defense attorneys there and judges, specialty court judges. There are over 3,700 specialty courts all across the U.S. Don't know how many in New Jersey. That's good foundation base for potentially successful program and implementation. So logistics, I'm happy to help with logistics.
I love that you mentioned loot boxes. I don't know if you know this, but there's like 2 or 3 YouTube channels with tens of millions of subscribers, and they just rail against loot boxes all the time because of the concern that some of these children are being pulled into sort of gambling patterns.
I'll stop talking about loot boxes. I'll stop talking about game industry bollocks when the game industry stops doing it, all right?
I don't know what to say anymore, Joe. This is the worst example I have ever seen. It is so blatant. They are essentially glorifying gambling. In a basketball game, you got a casino in my basketball game. You have a casino in a game rated E for everyone or PEGI 3 years or older. 3-year-olds.
At this point, they're just taunting you like, haha, you can't do anything about it.
This game is breaking even the self-regulated ESRB's own rules.
How did you learn about loot boxes? And I wonder, I mean, if any, go ahead.
It's a form of gambling. Yeah. I mean,
mean,
gambling conferences, researchers, or people that just talk about it. And there are a lot of people in the room at the gambling conference. We don't profess to be experts. But I'm not a gamer, but I used to play video games when I was a kid, so I was kind of nerdy in that respect, and not in a good way. Like the days of Atari, Pac-Man, and I had a Radio Shack Tandy computer, but it goes back to those days. And believe me, I've dropped a good number of quarters in the Galaxy game, Galaga, the Galaga game when I was a kid. Before we had like Xbox, quarter after quarter after quarter, and I mean, like, I was hooked on the game. Okay, until you ran out of quarters, and then, but I didn't commit a crime to go get more quarters. But it is addictive of nature, and gaming disorder is something that they're looking at. And so, cutting edge information that we're getting, and people like Cam Adair, who fell into a gambling disorder, and now he speaks out about these dangers and harms. And he explained, Fortnite skins, loot boxes, and you pay for them. And anybody listening in, you play Candy Crush Saga?
Yeah.
Don't buy the. I mean, okay, you could buy them. It's a free world. You could pay $1.99, but you're paying for something that doesn't exist.
I know. I used to tell.
Yeah, virtual reality.
I used to tell Brittany. Yeah, I used to tell Brittany, don't buy those things. It's crazy. This is such an insane topic. I can't believe that this is where we ended up at. We're almost at the end of the video, and the loot box thing is universally hated. Anyway,
yeah, well, as an aside, I would contact Cam Adair. He's on LinkedIn and Facebook. Cam Adair is he's the go-to guy that is nationally recognized as an expert on. And I don't know if you heard of Activision. He just posted something on LinkedIn about Activision is getting into trouble with something their practices, and it's harming. It caused harm, and so that's the word. We don't want harm to kids, the millennials, the Generation Z that are highly involved in technology, and gaming. Online gaming. You can now gamble on your phone, your laptop, your iPad, your computer, in your birthday suit. The accessibility, and lotteries now. Lotteries, you want to buy a lottery ticket? Just download our app and let's just verify your identity. But we have to be careful. Like, kids can use their parents' driver licenses, and bypass a lot of that security stuff. But there's a lot of good software companies that can do the security measures. But lottery now, you can buy lottery tickets on your phone. Why go get up and go to the gas station? You can just do it now. More access, more opportunities, more spending. And there's nothing wrong with that. We don't have a lottery in Nevada. Do I go over to California, and then just check out the lines and see, oh, wow, look, it's up to 8 million or something. Let's get a ticket. There's the fun. It's exciting. Great. Yes, it's entertaining, but also know that your billions and billions of odds to get one, and if you want to do that and make your donation to the lottery, and partake in that entertainment, nothing wrong with that. But I have a problem with parents putting lottery tickets in their kids' Christmas socks, that hang over the chimney. I don't know. There are commercials out there that, say, take responsibility over it. Would you give your kids cigarettes? The tobacco industry, I'm not knocking them, but history can repeat itself. Yeah. And the gambling, like I said, there is a lot of information out there. The gambling operators, we call them casinos, they use high-tech, and I know you're a high-tech guy, high-tech algorithms to identify anything and everything, and like what you eat for dinner when you walk into a casino or when you play online. They have right to the minute detail what your likes and dislikes are. How often do you gamble? How much do you spend? So let's talk about, just dabble a little bit about solutions. Self-exclusion is a effective method. I think my 20 years of looking at this and studying it and looking at these new innovative things, it's the only thing we have out there right now. Self-exclusion, it'll help, but there's always ways to bypass it. And the other thing is check out TransUnion. This guy by the name of Declan Rains is talking about their algorithms and using the software now for prevention. So we're talking about solvency. So if a casino, and there lies the issue. Will these casinos, if they get, and I'm not, I'm knocking them, if they get too laissez-faire and too indulging of everything and not self-regulating themselves, and I'm not trying to be original here, I read it in an article, they need to start regulating themselves. The government will step in. The government will step in and will clean up any messes. And, okay, Judge Moss talking about a mess. What is a mess? A mess is, look at Crown Resorts in Australia. They're facing a lot of lawsuits and sanctions and fines. And it's also another big topic about gaming commissions and how they're going to enforce their own gaming regulations and their nature of their relationships with the casinos. And, you can't turn a blind eye of something major that's happening. You have to enforce and you have to fine them monetarily, sanction, or pull their license or suspend their license. And, Nevada is one of the most strictest regulated state in terms of a gaming license. It's difficult and expensive to get a gaming license. You just can't walk in and say, hey, I want a gaming license. And with that, I think it's good for Nevada that we are the model state for new states that are for the first time legalizing gambling. Washington State just got sports betting. Ohio is about to get sports betting. Maryland just got sports betting legalized. DC's had gaming legalized, with the National Harbor casinos, MGM and all that, and Caesars over in Baltimore. They've got the Horseshoe property. But the intricate checks and balances of government protecting its citizens. I think a government has a duty to protect its citizens, look after them, and just don't throw them away. You have a gambler. If you don't give them diversion, you're paying in the state of New Jersey $61,000 a year for a healthy male adult inmate. More if you're elderly, more if you're a youth. 61,000 a year. Let's say you have 10 gamblers that got sent to prison without diversion. We'll do the math. 24,000 here in Nevada. So those 9 participants that I had, multiply that by 24,000. You Nevada taxpayers are not paying that 24,000 because I volunteered to do the GTDC court, which is a reality now, and waited 10 years for it. I'm saving the state money. What does it cost? Not much. It costs my time. I give freely. And it costs them their time to come to court because they have to come to court. And they pay for their own treatment because they have jobs, they have health insurance. So they can't afford it. We have grants and funding to pay for treatment, but it's a lot less than $24,000 a year. And what are they doing in prison? Not getting gambling treatment help. There's zero gambling treatment available in any of the states that have legalized gambling. I'm not aware of any actual gambling treatment program. And will it work? It's another long story, Alex, because the prison culture means sometimes you do have to participate in gambling to survive, because you will be frowned upon, looked upon if you don't get in on the football pool, or they'll gamble on pieces of cheese, because there's maybe mice or rats, and they give it to their pets or something. I don't know. I'm not trying to be facetious, but prison culture. There's a lot of gambling, dice games, card games, trading for cigarettes, and who knows? Even prisoners, I'm aware, I think they're allowed to have iPad Zoom visits or FaceTime visits on iPads now, so they're getting technology available to them. But it's gambling is rampant in the prisons. Trust me on that one. And how do we address that? That's another big topic. But if they're there, they're not getting the help and they're feeding more on it.
Mhm.
And what if you're like a gambling addict? Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to, but you're getting coached into doing it. You got to do it or we're going to, hurt you. And when you get out of prison re-entry, where are you going to go get help? It's not that easy. Like, oh, okay, now I'm out of prison. I'm going to go get help. No, sometimes it has to be forced upon you. Well, forced upon you because you're in a criminal court. But we don't force anything on anybody, but we give you the resources. So when you get out, where are you going to get help and who's going to give you that help? We don't want you to be like kind of thrown away and forgotten. We want to be there to help. Yeah.
You know, when somebody gets to that point at rock bottom, I mean, I know it's a hard word to use, force, but that's what the criminal system does, is it imposes that kind of
forced
and
it, yeah.
And it's like, but you know, I just wanted to make sure that even from my perspective that you understood that sometimes when somebody gets to the point where they're, harming other people, sometimes, the government does have to step in and apply force as much to the participant as they do to what you were talking about, the industry itself, when they don't self-police sufficiently. I mean, there's a role for the use of legal force in that's just one of the tough things to talk about, but it is, at the very, at rock bottom, that's what's there. So I guess we should go to the last question, because I have so many questions now. I ended up having more than I had when I started, but maybe we'll do another video someday in the future.
You might need to break this into part 1 and part 2.
Well, let's wrap this
a lot
one
of
up.
material.
It is the recent one with District Court Judge Judd. I think Gibson was about an hour. Also, we went for quite a while. Anyway, last question for now is another interesting article was published by Kimber Lau, a Nevada attorney, where the concept of full restitution caught my eye. One particular example was that of Las Vegas attorney who stole more than $300,000 from his clients, and instead of serving 20 years in prison, he participated in the program and paid back $304,000 in restitution. Is full restitution the exception or the rule with the JTDC?
Restitution is not quite the fully answered question, but it is mandatory under the Nevada statute, which is NRS Chapter 458A. So any attorneys actually want to go and look it up on the internet, Chapter 458A. Restitution is a absolute requirement of GTDC. But obviously, if you owe a lot of money, okay, you will not probably be able to pay off all the restitution in your lifetime, considering whatever the job you have now and your skills. Now, interesting, you said an attorney who paid back the restitution because he was able to get his law license back, given the benefit of the doubt, was healthy with his recovery. And if you're an attorney, he was a very good attorney. He was a real shining star when he was not gambling or doing drugs and all that other stuff. And he had the skills to do that. But there are a lot of people that are going to have just ordinary jobs, middle class paying jobs, not going to pay it off in their lifetime. So let me point out that under the Constitution and this Supreme Court case of Bearden, Bearden versus Georgia, it says that we can't imprison you if you genuinely and in good faith can show to the court that you cannot pay your restitution in full. But as long as you continue to pay it, how long can we keep tabs? Well, if you're not on probation, your felony is dismissed. The victim, I understand the victim's rights. How am I going to get paid? All I can say is if the person is in healthy recovery, it is part of their recovery to write that check every month. And they paid it to the bad check unit in the basement of the RJC. And it's part of their recovery, and they can continue to accept it or accept direct payment, or it goes back, once they graduate, it goes back to the criminal court judge for the dismissal and any tying up a loose end. So it would be the criminal court judge's responsibility, I think, to say, we'll set up an account, or you'll stipulate civil confession judgment, you owe the rest of the amount, and the method of how you're going to pay the victim so that it can be record keeping. But the U.S. Constitution says that if there's an undue financial hardship, I think Bearden versus Georgia might have had to do with like traffic tickets or something. He couldn't keep paying the traffic ticket, but he kept jailing him or
Mhm.
something like that. I have to go back and review the case, but it certainly spoke to the restitution aspect. Because I thought about it, I'm like, your constitutional rights, and we have indigent people, and if they can't pay, and as they're good citizens, you can't punish them
Mhm.
for that. I mean, the punishment enough was going through the program and facing prison time and going for the family court, and it is a form of punishment, but it's also rehabilitation. It's more of the rehabilitation aspect. We want you to rehabilitate so you can be good citizens. Because if you don't go through it, you're going to be out there committing more crimes. Is that it's going to be costly for the state in and out of jail. And I'll tell you, one of the participants I found out got terminated. We don't. You always ask why. You know, it was like, well, it took a long time for him to get a job. He wanted to get a job. Once he got a job, after 1 week on being on the job, he gets arrested for doing 3-card Monte dealing in the Strip, maybe on that bridge between the Paris Hotel and the New York Hotel. And Judge Bell terminated him. I think, you know, I'm not surprised, because sometimes we can't help. We do as much as we can, Alex.
Yeah.
And for some, maybe they not ready, or maybe they are twin toddlers, and you know, the girlfriend was watching them, and so she's sole supporter again. And he'll be in prison in 3 years. He'll miss out maybe on their first day of kindergarten at school. But priorities, where did his priorities are, or his thought processes. But I don't judge. If it is what it is, we do. That's what rules are for. Rules and compliance with court orders. Yeah.
I'll post a link of this article down in the description as well. And we are at goodbyes. I really appreciate you coming on to educate and engage with the public on this issue. It makes a huge difference. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. It's been a pleasure, and actually a very engaging conversation. And I'm more than happy to, you know, if anybody reaches out to me, then they can reach out to me if they want to learn more about that. gamblingcourtjudge@gmail.com. That's an easy one to remember. If they have any questions. But I hope it was a good educational session. I'm happy to impart that as part of my community service.